It's a wonderful day in the homiehood, a wonderful day for a homie. Won't you be my homie to Taro? We got a lot of news to get through today, and we're just going to very quickly go over some highlights that I noticed when I was reading the physical newspaper because I'm an old schooler like that, the Globe and Mail. So there's lots going on, but there's a couple things that I just thought were of particular interest. One thing that's caught my eye is that this headline here: the Prime Minister is standing behind a newly appointed special representative on combating Islamophobia. So you might ask yourself, why? Why is the Prime Minister standing behind this person? And I guess there has been some kind of outrage over this woman, Amira Elga Wabi, a human rights advocate and journalist, and some Quebecers are saying that she was like in a way like xenophobic to Quebecers by saying that they were anti-Muslim, or that Quebecers were like at their core Islamophobic, which obviously is not true. And this woman Amira El Gabawabi has clarified her position to the point where Justin Trudeau is satisfied. Um, and there was an article in some newspaper that opposed Bill 21, which is the bill that is trying to outlaw wearing some religious symbols such as hijabs in public servant positions. So they wrote an article way back about this. Let's see. Oh yeah. So Mrs. Al-Gawabi and someone else, another leader, a Jewish person, had co-written a column that was, I guess, controversial. And it didn't say that Quebecois people are inherently racist, but it did say that, unfortunately, the majority of Quebecers appear to be swayed not by the rule of law, but by anti-Muslim sentiment. A poll conducted by Leger Marketing earlier this year found that 88% of Quebecers who held negative views of Islam supported the ban. So it really was not even an opinion. It was like referencing this study, this poll that was done. So to say that this person is anti-Quebec is just really, really kind of silly. In a way, it does feel like this person whose job it will be to combat Islamophobia in Canada, which is like a significant problem that we've seen escalate to the point of violence in Quebec and in Ontario. I can think of a few cases where people have died. It does seem like this woman is in a way facing Islamophobia in her advocacy against Islamophobia. So it's kind of like a bizarre story. The fact that some people in Quebec would be outright outraged by someone citing a poll like this is very bizarre. So this is one of those cases where, Justin Trudeau is, I think, doing the right thing. It's very obvious, I think, to me, who is on the right side here. So moving on, because we're trying to do these quicker and make these videos under 20 minutes. A Quebec Cardinal, Marc Ouellette, resigns amid sexual misconduct allegations. So this is probably something that you were maybe hearing about, like I think about maybe a year ago, or less than that. But there were allegations against this cardinal, who is Canadian, Marc Ouellette, who has been accused of sexually assaulting a woman. Now, having read through this, I'm not sure that the allegations against him would amount to sexual assault. However, they are definitely creepy and they definitely raise some concerns. So specifically, this cardinal, Mr. Ouellette, had several interactions with this woman, and they kind of were like progressively more and more inappropriate, to the point where like he slid his hand down her back during a hug, and like touched like her very lower back, like essentially her upper bum. So it's not, I don't think it necessarily would constitute sexual assault, but it's definitely creepy. And of course, none of this is anything that has been proven in the court of law. However, I'm just like happy to see that this person has resigned. And do I really care that, a Canadian is not going to be the Pope? I don't care at all. And, I think sometimes in these situations, one thing we is that is hard for the law to put into real terms is like a vibe, and if you get a really creepy vibe from someone and there's kind of this escalating creepiness, then it's definitely some red flag to be raised. And in this case, I think we should stand by with the survivor. He's an old man. He's 78 years old. If he doesn't become the pope, I don't think it's the end of the world. And again, I don't really care about the Catholic Church. So, I'm glad to see that he has resigned. Moving on, there are some new national long-term care standards that have been unveiled, but Ottawa is not planning to make them mandatory. So long-term care has definitely been an issue here, especially during the pandemic, where Quebec and Ontario specifically had a lot of people, a lot of fatalities in nursing homes. So it's saying here that Canada had the worst record of COVID-19 fatalities among wealthy countries during the first wave of the pandemic. So our long-term care homes are definitely a problem. And as I said, particularly lethal in Ontario and Quebec, where thousands of vulnerable people died alone in understaffed homes. So this is trying to potentially put some more pressure on long-term care homes to have a higher quality of care. However, the problem seems to be that these regulations are not going to be mandatory, and there's not necessarily any way to enforce these new rules. So a lot of people, or the critics are saying that, this is all well and good, but it's potentially something that's going to fall flat on its face unless there's some way to enforce and have consequences for long-term care homes that are not going to use these new regulations. So this is also related to Bill 7 in Ontario, which is allowing hospitals to override patient consent. It's something that's been done by Premier Doug Ford. And basically, if you're in a hospital and the long-term care home that you want to be in does not have an availability, they can just force you into a long-term care bed as far as 70 kilometers away in southern Ontario and 150 kilometers away in northern regions of Ontario. So otherwise, you're looking at a fee of $400 a day to so you're paying a lot, and you don't really have autonomy when navigating, which should be our public healthcare system, right? But as we know, a lot of long-term care homes are privatized, and we did see a lot of deaths in those privatized nursing homes. So it's kind of this issue, I think, that we have long-term care homes that are not part of our universal healthcare system. Now, I should put universal in quotes because if we really don't have a true universal system here in Canada. And it's one of those blind spots that we have. And for me personally, I think that long-term care homes should be something that's integrated into our public healthcare system, as opposed to allowing all of these private companies, whether they're for profit or nonprofit, to benefit off of something that we're all inevitably going to face, which is getting old and needing care. So jumping down to the United States of America, where they are facing some civil unrest due to the beating and police murdering of Tyree Nichols. A sixth Memphis police officer has been relieved of duty. I always find it crazy that they use this language, like relieved of duty. It just makes it sound so kind of like unserious, and like, oh, they're just like, they didn't get fired, they didn't get prosecuted, they are just relieved of duty. They potentially were involved with the murdering of Tyree Nichols, and they are simply relieved of duty. I feel like we need to have stronger consequences for these situations. So there is a sixth, and there is an unnamed seventh person who was involved. Several of the, I think the EMS workers were also have also been relieved, I guess, of their duty. Um, Thank you so much, Pixels, for coming out. Good luck. We'll hope to see you tomorrow. And it my understanding is that there were also some white officers involved in the murder. So far all of the limelight has been put on five black officers, but this sixth person is white. And I guess it's kind of weird to be focusing so much on race, but I guess like it is kind of important to the story and the way a lot of people are going to spin this story. Like, is it a black on black violence, or is it white on black violence? At the end of the day, I really just don't think it matters. What matters is that Tyree Nichols was killed by the police, and the institution of policing is in itself the problem, right? There are going to be some nuances when if it was five white officers, I certainly think that would have been a different story. But at the same time, the reaction has to be the same, because what at the end of the day, what needs to be opposed is the institution of policing, so much as it exists here in North America. And it's a bit disappointing to see some people say like that they don't care about this as much as they do the George Floyd murder, just because what the officers were black. It shouldn't matter. It doesn't matter. And we need to have a standard when we're opposing something like this. So moving on. Uber drivers earn less than $8 per hour, says a new report from gig worker advocacy group. So this was something that kind of just caught my eye. I was awake early enough today to actually get to the business section of the newspaper, which is often underrated in my opinion, because there are sometimes some great articles about the labor movement, such as this one. So this was kind of interesting that Uber, basically because of the amount of time that people spend like idling and like not fulfilling an order or collecting a fare, all of that time that is spent kind of waiting for the next gig, um Uber drivers earn an average of $7.90 an hour, which is obviously really, really far below Ontario's minimum wage of 15.50. So it's one of these problems with late stage capitalism and gig economy workers, is that they're not actually employees of Uber. They are essentially just like private business owners who have been contracted out by the company. And this is for this reason I've kind of been opposed from Uber from the very beginning, because I thought, why not, if anything, why not have uh I guess this is my answer to a lot of things, because I am a socialist. It's like, why don't we bring the existing taxi system under the government, since government is responsible for travel and transportation. um or why do we not just have like our own Ontario version, or even a municipality, right? Why is there not just a Toronto version of Uber that you can use, that keeps the rates as low as possible, ethically employs as many people as possible, and also allows people to have great jobs and unionize and be kind of in control, be empowered as workers, right? And it also means, I think, that all of the taxes that come from paying into that, like, it would just be something that benefits everyone. Instead, we have Uber hiring, quote unquote, all of these independent contractors, and all of that money is kind of gets sucked out of our communities. Even with traditional taxi companies, there's an argument to be made that at least some money is being kept in our community, even if it is going to a larger company and not directly to the workers. So, Uber is saying, hey, this isn't true. Drivers in the Toronto area earned a median wage of 33.98 an hour for engaged time. So that is time that they spend actually driving passengers around to make deliveries. That doesn't include the time that they are waiting or are parked and are unable to like get a fare. Their argument is that people are using multiple apps. So you might be a driver for Uber and for Lyft and for DoorDash, and in that way you're kind of like piecing together all of these different forms of income to make a lot of money, which I think is like kind of just like a really stupid argument. I don't think somebody should have to piece all of these like little side hustles together in order to make a living. um and also there's the additional cost of having to maintain your vehicle and pay for gas and all of these other things that are going to cost these independent drivers a lot of money. Uber is also saying that by or sorry, this the critics of Uber and Lyft and these platforms are saying that some sort of minimum wage should be included for these drivers. And of course, they're pushing back against that, saying, well, that would make the job less flexible for the people who want to do it. So, they're full of excuses. I think there's definitely some labor rights that need to be standardized for this industry. And until we see them, the gig economy workers are going to be always kind of put in a precarious place. I think you get a lot of maybe freedom in those jobs, but it should also be for a a modest wage, like if I think it's just a slippery slope when a company can say that, oh, these aren't actually employees, they're all just independent contractors. What is stopping other industries from doing a similar kind of like malpractice or loophole to get around having rights for their workers? For example, I guess in another example, Ontario hospital nurses are starting contract talks and planning to escalate actions, which is fantastic news. This is coming in the wake of Bill, was it 124, which has been found unconstitutional in Ontario. Bill 124 is put in by the Doug Ford government to say that nurses and other public sector workers can only receive a 1% wage increase. So we know now that that is unconstitutional, and unfortunately, the Conservative government here in Ontario is challenging that with an appeal. We hope and we almost know that they're going to lose that appeal. So nurses now are gearing up to fight for their rights. Obviously, they deserve a huge increase because they have is it 2 or 3 years of lost wage increases. So so it's kind of just this silly waste of resources that the Doug Ford government has put a cap on paying public sector workers what they deserve. And now, you know what? We're just going to end up paying for it anyways. So we should have got what these workers what they deserved in the first place. So we are hopefully going to see a lot more advocacy for nurses as they gear up for these negotiations. Okay, and lastly today in the headlines that we're going to go over is Ontario Liberals pushing back against an effort to recruit Green Party leader Mike Schreiner. Now, we might go over this in a bit more detail later on the stream. So if you're on YouTube and watching this and you've made it this far, please don't forget to like and subscribe, because I'm trying really hard to get this channel up to 1,000 subscribers. And if there is another video on the channel today, it might very well be going into detail about this Mike Schreiner situation, because it is somewhat fascinating, because it's not your politics as usual kind of situation. So if you haven't heard, the Ontario Liberals have put in an official request Now, it's not from everyone in the Liberal Party, as this article is saying, but 40 Liberal Party members. They're asking Mike Schreiner to consider crossing the floor and run for the leadership of the party. Now, a lot of people are saying, like, what the hell are you thinking? And I kind of am falling in that camp as well. To my surprise, yesterday Mike Schreiner said that he was considering this, and he wants to hear from his constituents and his supporters as to what they think. Well, I guess as someone who voted Green Party in the last Ontario election, I think, please, Mike, please do not do it. Um, and I would say, even by considering it, he has kind of damaged his reputation a bit. Like, I don't want to support a Liberal Party, even if Mike Schreiner was the leader of the Liberal Party, which he might not even be if he crosses the floor. Um, it would be something I'm like, well, are you going to have the exact same platform as the Green Party? And in which case, and if not, like, why would I vote Liberal? But if you are going to have the exact same platform as the Green Party, now actually, I don't even believe that you would be willing to do it, because, the Liberal Party has a long history of neoliberalism here in Ontario. They essentially have worked in tandem with the conservative government to, defund public schools and privatize healthcare. So it's something that is just very bizarre. I guess it's got people talking. But I really hope that Mike Schreiner doesn't do it. A lot of people, including the other people who want to run for Liberal leader in Ontario, are kind of just like, hey, what the hell? For example, Nathaniel Erskine Smith, who I think would be the front runner uh, when they have this election, um, is it says here that he called the letter a gimmick and a Hail Mary that won't work to regrow the party or make it a serious contender in the next election. And I just, like, actually, I think I wholeheartedly agree with that. It's like, he goes on, I think it's a bit of a mistake, he said. It's aiming to find a path toward winning before we really put the hard work in. And yeah, that is kind of my sense, is that, like, liberals want to take the easy route towards regaining their party status in Ontario, and what they need to do is actually just put in the work and find someone, have a proper leadership election, and getting Mike Schreiner to come in and basically, build off of all the hard work that Mike Schreiner has done to grow the Green Party is kind of just like this shortcut that I don't think is going to happen. And even if Mike Schreiner crosses the aisle, there's no guarantee that he will even win the leadership. So it kind of just seems like this weird, pathetic attempt to get people talking. Maybe that's all it is that even if it doesn't work out well, people kind of like started talking about the Liberals. But one thing that is really disappointing is that Mike Schreiner, if he is actually considering becoming a Liberal, well, I've already lost, like, a little bit of respect for him. And if he does cross the aisle, then I will lose, like, almost all the respect that I've had for him, which is, really just a shame, because he has struck me as someone who is very principled, and I think he did a great job in the debates. I want to see the Green Party, because I really believe in their platform, especially in so much as it pertains to proportional representation and forming a committee, a public committee, to decide how to specifically do electoral reform, and specifically proportional representation. That is one of my main political things that I believe in, and I would love to see getting done in Ontario. So, Mike Schreiner, please don't do it. Please be the person who has a lot of integrity, maybe one of the only people who has the integrity to lead a party like the Green Party and the platform that they represent right now. So please don't do it, Mike. Please don't do it.